Fisher.
Hi, and welcome back to this last segment of this Wednesday edition of Focal Point. Here for Talk. Brand Fisher is my name, 888-589-8840. We'll get to your calls in just one moment. Here is Rachel Jeantel, clip number 3, Adam. Rachel Jeantel talking to Piers Morgan about her suspicions that George Zimmerman was a homosexual pedophile. And this may have led Trayvon Martin to attack him, to protect his younger brother from this homosexual pedophile. So this may be have been a hate crime on Trayvon Martin's part. Remember, hate crime says actual or perceived sexual orientation. If Trayvon Martin perceived George Zimmerman to be a homosexual and to be a homosexual pedophile and attacked him for that reason, that would be a hate crime. And here is Rachel Jeantel talking about this whole dimension to Piers Morgan.
Then he didn't want that going to his father girlfriend house to go get, mind you, his little brother was there. And mind you, I told Trayvon he might have been a rapist.
So it says, I told Trayvon, look, Zimmerman might be a rapist. You better not let him get to your little brother at the home. So this could have been an instance of gay bashing on Trayvon Martin's part. Now, there were a lot of complaints. This is clip 4. A lot of complaints about how monochrome the jury was. 5 whites, maybe 1 Hispanic, all women. How come he wasn't represented by people of his own race? Well, here is part of the explanation, according to Michael Skolnick, who's the political director for Global Grind. He was on with Carol Costello, CNN, and here was their conversation about the makeup of the jury.
So, Mark, do Trayvon Martin's parents, you think, I mean, when they look at the jury makeup and they look at the decision that jury came to, do they say, why didn't we have an African-American on the jury? Well, why didn't we have 6 white women?
And that's what we were saying from the beginning. Sometimes I've been criticized by some who don't understand that a legal opinion is very different than a personal, a social, or a philosophical opinion. When you look at the composition of Seminole County, it's 11% African American. And when you look at Sanford, it's 30% African American. So when you subtract Sanford from the overall Seminole County, you have, a very, very small minority, specifically African American representation within Seminole County. So when in fact you condense that down to a jury, the odds of getting an African American on the jury are very slim when you're in Seminole County.
Although, if I remember correctly, one of the prosecutors struck a potential black juror from the jury.
Yeah, he was also. So I was going to say he was also a Fox News watcher. So that was, problematic for the prosecution.
So the guy is saying, Michael Skolnick saying, look, they had a black juror, but the prosecution struck him because he watched Fox News. You want to know why it was monochrome? Because the prosecution dumped a black juror because he depended on Fox News for his information. Now, Charles Krauthammer talking about the possibility of a federal prosecution of Zimmerman, and he says, look, this would be this would be a travesty. It would be an utterly shameless dereliction of duty and a compromise of justice. And Bill O'Reilly's asking him the question, what's the most important thing about this story, this George Zimmerman trial, to you? Here's what Krauthammer had to say.
Whether the mob is going to rule. It was a lot because of the mob. I'm talking about the activists and the people who live off racial conflict, that we had the trial in the first place. As we saw by the weakness of the prosecution, the fact that they really had almost no case at all, it was arguable that it shouldn't have been brought to trial in the first place.
But it was better than it was, though.
It was
so
better.
Everybody saw.
Yeah, so the mob demanded it, and the mob said, let Trayvon have his day in court. And there was an impartial jury. Is there any evidence whatsoever of racial animus or a bias in the actual trial itself? If anything, the trial judge had some sympathy, I think a little more sympathy for the prosecution. So nobody and it was not in secret, it was open for the whole world to see. So there is no case to be made that this was an unfair process.
And so the bottom line is saying, look, if you get a federal prosecution out of this would be a victory for mob rule, not for the rule of law, not for justice, but for mob rule. One last soundbite, then we'll go to the phones. Larry Elder, who, of course, is black himself, Because another possibility that's come up is the Trayvon Martin family going after George Zimmerman with a civil suit, like the family of Nicole Simpson did, going after O.J. One big difference: O.J. Simpson has money. George Zimmerman's got nothing. He's zeroed out. He's lost everything. His family's lost everything. There's nothing to get there. You can't get blood out of a turnip, as they say. But here's Larry Elder and his advice for Trayvon Martin's family about the civil suit issue.
I'll tell you something else, too. On the civil trial, I would advise the Martin family to be careful, because the Zimmerman side reserved the right to still make the stand your ground defense. They probably will very well do that to inoculate themselves from any kind of civil action, assuming they prevail. And the Martin family loses, they're going to have to pay for Zimmerman's lawyers. And all this stuff about Trayvon's background that was excluded by Judge Nelson will come in. The drugs, talking about guns, about fighting, the fact that he'd been suspended 3 times and was on suspension when this shooting took place. All that'll come in. How he joked about marijuana and his Twitter handle with the N-word in it. All that stuff will come out. And this business about who raised Trayvon is going to come out. Remember the woman that interviewed with Anderson Cooper and said she's the one who raised Trayvon Martin from the age of 3 to 17. She never married Trayvon Martin's dad, and apparently he's engaged to somebody other than this woman. And the biological mother, the one that we saw all the time, apparently she didn't even raise Trayvon Martin. So all that would come in, and it would be extremely embarrassing, and there's no real reason to believe that the family's going to prevail. I would advise the Martin family, assuming they were listening to me, and they're not, take the $1 million that they got from the Homeowners Association, write a book, and try and put it behind.
So Larry Elder is saying, look, there's a real risk for the Trayvon Martin family in going ahead with a civil suit. Things are going to come out and become a part of the public record that they probably do not want the public to know or focus on. Let's go to the phones. Let's go to Jimmy, Spring Hill, Florida. Jimmy, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
Hi, Brian. Thank you for taking my call.
You're welcome.
I just have to say that, it's strange, very, very strange. Everybody talks to us about racism, and you know where the racism is coming? Right from the White House. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's almost funny to listen to them saying that it's a race crime. The race crime is, like I said, the blacks against the whites.
And they're trying, and that's the problem here. That's so. It's kind of distressing to me, Jimmy, because race had nothing to do with this incident whatsoever.
Absolutely not.
And so people are fabricating it. The president is injecting himself into it. Eric Holder is injecting himself. They're trying to turn this into an issue of racism, and race had absolutely nothing to do with. So all of this racial energy and animus is being stirred up by people who think they have some way to benefit from creating all this kind of chaos.
I agree.
All right. Well, listen, thank you for the call, Jimmy. I appreciate that. Thank you for listening. Let's go to TC in Wewoka, Oklahoma. TC, welcome. What's on your mind?
Thank you, Brian, for taking my call.
You're welcome.
I was wanting to know how come that they didn't allow the picture of Trayvon to be put on before the jury, the one with all the tattoos and everything that they showed when this first happened.
I'm not sure I understood your question. Say that again for me.
Okay. Why didn't they show the picture of Trayvon before? As he is an adult now. Well, he's an adult, but he's 17 years old with all the tattoos.
Yeah, that was part of the media bias, number one. That was part of the media bias. They showed us this picture of Trayvon Martin looked like he just came off the Little League field instead of the pictures of him as a 17-year-old adult, pretty big kid, pretty tall kid, 150 pounds, and towered over George Zimmerman. And the images that were on his cell phone, which were extracted by the IT guy there in the prosecution, those were never shown to the judge, and they weren't shown to the defense, and the judge would not allow them. When she found out about them, the judge would not allow them to become part of the trial. And the guy that discovered that and made sure the defense got their hands on it, he got fired by that Angela Corey, totally inept and corrupt prosecutor. And now he's filing a whistleblower lawsuit, the guy that was fired for making sure that the defense had all of the evidence in the case. He's now filing a whistleblower suit against Angela Corey in the state of Florida, and he absolutely is right to do so. All right, TC, thank you. Again, just the pictures that were shown and evidence of the mainstream media bias in this whole deal. Let's go to John, Stevens, Texas. John, welcome. What's on your mind?
Hey, Brian. I just wanted to offer a little bit of encouragement. Now,
Yes,
I understand you don't get very many young people on the show, and the ones I have heard call in aren't a very upstanding character.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly, I just wanted to let you know that not to sound arrogant or anything, but I suppose there's still hope for the future. Both I and my siblings are being raised in a good family who appreciates the kind of work that you do.
And John, how old are you?
18, sir.
18. Well, I'm telling you, John, and I'm taking it. You and your siblings, they share the kind of values that we're talking about on this program.
Yes, sir.
Well, I'll tell you, John, it's tremendously encouraging. It's a great way to finish this program with you calling in because, you know, I think it's guys like you, John, that give me hope, and that should give us all hope for the future. I mean, I think a lot of people look at this generation, you're a millennial, 18 years old, 18 to 29, right in that category. And people are out there thinking that generation is gone. There's no hope. They've gone over the edge. We've lost them on gay marriage. We've lost them on abortion. We've lost them on all these values issues. There's no point in even trying to make the case for those things any longer. And here we got John, Stevens, Texas, says, hang in there. All is not lost. I'm in a family that believes these values. I've got siblings that believe these values. So we will continue, John, to declare and stand for these truths. And thank you for listening, and thank you for your support. And God bless you, as you are going to have a very, very important role in the future of taking the torch from our generation and carrying it forward. Well, that's it for today. Do not forget to bow low before God, stand tall before man, stand in the gap, and as the call from John shows, we're fighting a winnable war. See you tomorrow.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast do not necessarily reflect those of American Family Association or American Family Radio. American Family Radio, AFR Talk.
Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree and I'll spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. That's a quote from Abraham Lincoln talking about the importance of planning ahead. You know, we've had listeners through the years tell us that they'd love to come to Tupelo, Mississippi to help out with Share-a-thon if only they could plan a few months out. Well, start making your plans now for the AFR Fall Share-a-thon, October 22nd through 24th.
American Family Radio, AFR Talk, a ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News on the Hour. I'm Chad Groening. Members of Congress say the government's surveillance powers are much too broad. Correspondent Jerry Bodlander reports.
The author of the Patriot Act, Congressman James Sensenbrenner, warns the government has gone too far in collecting the phone records of average Americans as well as business records that may be related to terrorism. He says changes are needed or the act might not be renewed.
There are not the votes in the House of Representatives to renew Section 215, and then you're going to lose the business record access provision of the Patriot Act entirely.
Deputy Attorney General James Cole stressed the huge collection of calls is only accessed if there's a need, but that failed to mollify lawmakers from both parties. Jerry Bodlander, Capitol Hill.
A conservative leader and commentator calls the George Zimmerman trial a sad moment for the country. And the idea of the Justice Department filing civil rights charges against Zimmerman is, quote, inappropriate. Gary Bauer of American Values.
The event in Florida was obviously tragic for two families, and I don't think anybody feels good about the situation in any way, shape, or form. But all the evidence indicates that the jury was made up of fair people who looked at the evidence, looked at the Florida law, and reached, I think, the only conclusion that they could reach.
And Bauer says the accusation that Zimmerman is a racist is simply not true.
You can think that Mr. Zimmerman was stupid the way he handled the situation, but the idea that he is a racist, there's nothing in his background. He tutored young minority children, testified at a city council hearing against the son of a white policeman who had gotten away with beating up a black homeless man.
Bauer made his comments on American Family Radio. Pro-lifers continue to celebrate the passage of a law in Texas that restricts abortions and toughens standards. Pastor Robert Jeffress of First Baptist Church, Dallas.
This bill that would end abortions after 20 weeks, and it would require our abortion centers here in Texas to be raised to a level that mirrored ambulatory care centers to protect the health of women. And Governor Perry signed it. We believe this will save tens of thousands of lives. It will reduce abortions in Texas from 70,000 a year to about 5,000 a year.
Jeffress also made his comments on American Family Radio. A march is going forward in Wisconsin to pass a personhood constitutional amendment. AFN's Charlie Butts reports the process is a lengthy one.
Representative Andre Jacques submitted the proposed amendment, which is designed to close a loophole in the Wisconsin Constitution, which says a person must be born in order to access the inalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The amendment would establish those rights for a person regardless of stage of development.
So it's a simple change and something that is meant to remove the ability for a future activist state Supreme Court to overturn Wisconsin's pro-life statute that's on the books.
Jacques recognizes there is opposition even within the pro-life movement in the state, but it's difference of opinion in strategy, not principle, for most of them.
There is a pro-life group which has been opposed to personhood, which kind of puts them in company with NARAL and Planned Parenthood.
Getting a constitutional amendment before the people is not an easy task.
You have
Those activities included co-sponsoring a bill calling for the divestment of university money from companies with economic ties to the Israeli military on the West Bank. And that is American Family News on the Hour. I'm Chad Groening.
America is at a crossroads of local and global missions that runs right through our own backyard. Come to Atlanta and experience firsthand how you and your church can make an impact, both locally and globally, in answering the call to go and make disciples of all nations. Global Frontier Missions and AFR present 1040 America, the local global crossroads, November 12th through 14th in Atlanta, Georgia. For more information and to register, visit 1040america.com.
The Bible. It's the Word of God. Living and active, sharper than any two-edged sword. It contains all we need for life and godliness, and it reveals to us the mysteries of God. Join us for the next hour as we study the Bible and take your Bible questions. This is Exploring the Word on AFR Talk.
It is good to have you on this Wednesday, and for many of you, it'll be the midweek service at your church. And we hope that it is a prayer meeting. I'm able to work with churches, and I say, years and years ago, it was the midweek service. It was called prayer meeting. And so I hope you're meeting to pray today and to make your petitions known to the Lord as a group or as an individual. This is Bert Harper along with Dr. Alex McFarland. And so we're thankful that you could join us today for Exploring the Word as we go through the book of Exodus. Alex, the book of Exodus is such an awesome book, and let me set this up, and you and I have talked a little bit about where we want to go today. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, but we have today. But we find out the personal needs had to be met, and God met them, the water and the food. But now we're coming to chapter 17, verse 8, where not only is God going to be there for them with their personal needs, he's going